What's up, everyone? Welcome to the June 24th edition of DraftKings Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, use the code AWESOMO when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. You'll receive one free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You'll also receive a 100% deposit bonus up to $100 on that first deposit. We have a massive 14-game MLB slate tonight. As usual, we're going to take a look at three of the top tournament stacks and three of the top tournament pitchers using the Top Stacks tool and the Top Pitchers tool on the Stokastic.com website. Starting with the top stacks, number 3, the Chicago Cubs are taking on Neil Payante tonight. 3% projected ownership, 3% chance of being the top scoring stack, but also a 7% chance of being the top value stack. The Cubs have a 105 WRC plus and 154 ISO on their active roster. Payante has struck out 16.2% of hitters this year. He does have a respectable 3.94 xFIP, but the Cubs not getting much ownership, and they are very inexpensive throughout their lineup. Number 2, the Washington Nationals taking on Dane Dunning. Dunning is a solid pitcher, typically someone that I don't go out of my way to target, but there are a lot of good expensive pitchers today, not a lot of good cheap pitchers, and the Nats are pretty inexpensive. They're projected for 3% ownership, with a 4% chance of being the top scoring stack and a 7% chance of being the top value stack. Dunning has a 21.2% strikeout percentage and 3.82 xFIP so far this season. Washington's active roster has a 96 WRC plus and only a 129 ISO. So, again, not a spot where they're particularly likely to be successful, but they are cheap and not getting much ownership. And speaking of teams that are not likely to be successful, but that are cheap and not getting much ownership, the Detroit Tigers, 2% projected ownership, 3% chance of being the top scoring stack, but also a 16% chance of being the top value stack. They're taking on Merrill Kelly, who is also projected for about 25% ownership. So if Detroit does well, you get an added bonus of a quarter of the field losing one of their pitchers in Kelly. Kelly so far this year, a 20.3% strikeout percentage, 4.09 xFIP. The Tigers' active roster, absolutely horrendous, 74 WRC plus and a 104 ISO. But they do have Riley Green now, so that is one of the top hitting prospects in baseball. He makes your Detroit stacks look a little bit better. And again, you're just going to be able to get very good lineups around them, and then you just have to, kind of hope to get lucky with the Tigers' bats. Now, looking at the top 3 tournament pitchers, number 3, Alec Manoa, taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Manoa is projected for 10% ownership with a 12% chance of being a top 2 scoring pitcher and a 4% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. Manoa has struck out 22.9% of hitters with a 3.75 xFIP so far this season. Milwaukee's active roster has a 102 WRC plus to go along with a 24% strikeout percentage. Number 2, Justin Verlander in a very difficult matchup at the New York Yankees. Verlander has struck out 25.5% of hitters with a 3.41 xFIP so far this season. The Yankees' active roster has the highest WRC plus in baseball at 121 with a 21.7% strikeout percentage. Verlander is projected for 10% ownership with a 14% chance of being a top 2 pitcher and a 3% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. And number 1, Luis Severino, 17% projected ownership, 18% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 4% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher at $10,200. Brutal matchup tonight against the Houston Astros. The Astros' active roster has a 115 WRC plus and an 18.4% strikeout percentage, but Severino does lead the slate with a 29.9% strikeout percentage overall this season. He also has a very good 3.23 xFIP. One thing to keep an eye on here is exactly what Houston's lineup looks like. We know that there aren't a lot of strikeouts in it anyway, but Severino does have drastic splits this year between lefties and righties when it comes to strikeout numbers, only striking out 18.5% of left-handed hitters this year compared to 37.5% of righties. If for some reason we were to get a little bit more right-handed heavy Astros lineup, that would certainly be beneficial for Severino. So to recap, the top 3 tournament stacks on DraftKings: number 3, the Chicago Cubs; number 2, the Washington Nationals; number 1, the Detroit Tigers; and the top 3 tournament pitchers: number 3, Alec Manoa; number 2, Justin Verlander; and number 1, Luis Severino.